And welcome back, everybody. Silas here. We are out in the woods. This is going to be the first and possibly only dedicated to mushroom video, morel mushroom video I make for the entire year. I've gone out 2 or 3 other times, but it was always part of another video where, I'm out at an auction not far from the place where there's mushrooms, and so I go to the auction, film that, and then I add the mushrooms on at the end, or just things like that. I haven't really done a purely dedicated to the mushroom hunt video, and I feel like I need to do at least one. That being said, it has been a terrible year for the mushrooms, and I'm talking straight up terrible. Kind of a twofold problem. One is we had a very dry winter where we got 1 snow all winter long in this area, and that makes a big difference. Problem number 2 is it was almost 100 degrees in the beginning of March. I mean, it got hot fast, and then it cooled back down again, and then it got hot again, and then it cooled back down again, and now it's at a normal temperature. But those crazy fluctuations like that really messed with the way everything's growing this year. For example, all this right here is all poison ivy. It's all fully leafed out. Normally this time of year, the leaves are just starting to come out. And because it got warm so early, a lot of the undergrowth grasses and the Japanese honeysuckle and all that stuff grew really fast and turned green way earlier than it usually does. And so it's hard to compete with that stuff and see the mushrooms. This tree just fell over recently. Ooh, I thought that was a big spider. That's just a seed pod. And then also it's been really dry. Right now I went north instead of south. I've been going south the other times I've gone, and everything's flooded down there. But up here, everything is bone dry. Like, this tree should be growing mushrooms. Why is it not growing mushrooms? I don't know. I used to find mushrooms in this area all the time, but then a tornado came through here and wiped all these trees out completely. Found mushrooms for a couple years after that, but then it started overgrowing with all this stuff that you see here. And so more than likely, the mushrooms won't grow again in this area for a very long time. It may be a decade or more before they start growing in this area. Just kind of the cycle of things. That's why most years I go check out new spots. This year I didn't check out any new spots because I've been so busy with the tractor cleanup that I had right during mushroom season. And then I had some really good auctions like today. It's actually 1 o'clock in the afternoon right now. I'm just now getting out here because I had a really good auction I wanted to go to. And it was actually only about 10 minutes away from here. And the auction got over and I was loaded and ready to go by 1 o'clock or by about 12:30. So I said, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and zip on over there. That was a crazy auction. That was a crazy auction. Oh, there's a bunch of milkweed growing. That's a good sign for the monarchs. I don't think I've ever seen milkweed out here before. But yeah, as you can see, this is just completely overgrown with grass. I mean, bad overgrown with grass. If there's mushrooms in there, you'd struggle to find them. So I'm just gonna kind of skip over the top of all that. There's about a 2-mile hike to a place where I almost always find mushrooms. I think I've never not found at least a few over there. Some years it's a bumper crop, some years it's just a few here and there. At this point in time, I don't care about even finding enough to sell. Usually I find, a handful that I can sell, make a little money on, and that's what pays for, like, my kayak was paid for with mushrooms. I have a fishing pole paid for with mushrooms. I have my dehydrator was paid for, just things like that. And so I usually try to find at least some to sell. But this year, it's been a really slow year. Like I say, I haven't gone looking as much, but several of my buddies that do a lot of serious mushroom hunting as well, they've hardly found any in any of their spots. Talking to a guy at an auction earlier in the week, and he has 40 acres, and he usually finds boatloads of them. He said he found 2 mushrooms on his whole property. On my 20 acres, I think I found 2 or 3 mushrooms, but they were super dry and shriveled up little tiny things, so I didn't even pick them. And I am pretty much just after mushrooms today. I'm not after anything else. I have in my freezer a bunch of diced up wild onions, garlic mustard, pretty set on all that stuff. I have some frozen. I blanched them and froze them, some morels and some oysters, the ones that I did find, oyster mushrooms. And so I'm pretty well stocked on most of them. I'm mainly just after mushrooms today, so I probably won't pick anything else unless it's something really rare that I don't get to pick very often. Man, this is almost depressing walking through here. This used to be such good mushroom territory. Now it's just nothing. Like right here in this spot where we're walking up on now, man, I used to find boatloads of them right here. I need to go through my map and update it because, like, I have this spot marked on my map as being a prime spot. But, oh, there goes a lizard. But I mean, as you can see, it is no longer a prime spot. There is nothing here. I should have brought my off-road bike, because then I could have got to where I'm going a little bit faster. But I thought about buying an off-road scooter, a little bit more mobile, easier to take it places. Look at them thorns. Boy, howdy. Not only are they long, but they're skinny and pointy. Those aren't like a locust. I guess that is a locust. It's just kind of a different one. That's all I need. That's adding insult to injury for all my mushroom spots to die out and then be taken over by thorn trees. One of my main other spots got taken by Japanese honeysuckle. That stuff is terrible this year. I think Kansas is actually getting ready to classify it as a noxious plant, noxious weed, whatever they call it. The reason why they never did in the past is because I guess in order to be classified as that, it had to be something that had a monetary impact on like ranching or farming or cattle or things like that. And you know, it doesn't really, because it's not something that grows in fields usually. It's something that grows in the tree rows. That doesn't really matter, doesn't really affect anything money-wise. But it destroys the native ecology. And so if they're able to get it classified, maybe they'll be able to get some funding to start doing something about it. You know what's interesting is, as you can see, all these dead trees all around me are mostly cottonwoods. You know, cottonwoods are a fairly invasive tree themselves. You get through all this stuff. I got my stick extended out so you can kind of see how I'm walking around, but it's hard to get through the trees with it out here like this. Just had a bug go in my eye. Second time today that's happened. Guess I should be wearing glasses. But yeah, anyway, normally cottonwoods are fairly invasive, and they are not invading here. It's like they're just all dying out, and they're not being replaced by younger trees. Not sure what the reason for that is. Man, this is all different. I'm gonna have to hike all the way out and around. I don't know what else to do, because this is just getting overgrown with all these water shrubs. I found this deer trail. Makes my life a little bit easier to walk through here. You know, I haven't even seen any garlic mustard, and that's weird. Man, how far do I have to hike down? I'll tell you what, I'm just gonna keep on going, going, and going like the Energizer Bunny. Finally, found an area where I can walk across. You know, I hate to say it, but there may be a time in the very near future, maybe even next year, where I'm gonna have to start going out to eastern Kansas or like western Missouri if I want to find mushrooms. Because central Kansas, I think the ecology is changing enough to where it's not going to be a thing too much longer. I mean, I'm sure there'll be mushrooms here for a very long time still, but and there's off years. Maybe this is just an off year. I guess we'll find out next year. And there's been years past where I didn't find any mushrooms at all, but I didn't really hunt that much back in those days. So we'll see, maybe it'll turn around. But if not, we'll just go to eastern Kansas, because I see people posting online where, you know, a couple hours from here, they're still finding quite a few. Again, I don't think I got my camera out in time. There's a whole covey of quail just took off over here. This area looks a little bit better for mushrooms. Not as overgrown with grass. See, like this tree here, the top half of this tree has fallen over. You'd think this would be a prime spot, but there's nada. Still nothing, but at least it looks better. Not so overgrown. I don't have my hiking boots on. These are my work boots. Since I was at the auction all day, I didn't think it would be over that early. Didn't plan on doing this today. But yeah, it's a little bit easier to walk at least. Whoop. There goes one right there. There's a quail. I know why that one was on camera. I've only been mushroom hunting for about 15, 16 years now. Let's see here, 2011 was the first year I went, so 15 years. This is my 16th season, I guess is the way of saying it. You know, for the first number of those years, probably the first almost 10 years, I wasn't that serious about it. Just if I found them, great. If not, oh well. Oh, there goes a whole bunch of deer over there. But you know, in 2020, I was unemployed during mushroom season, just like much of the country was. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna go on adventures all the time. That was a year before I had a channel. And so me and my buddy, we just went out mushroom hunting all the time. And that's when we discovered a lot of really good spots to hunt mushrooms. Had a ton of fun, found a boatload of mushrooms. And so that's when it really became serious. And so in 21 is when I first started on YouTube. And so I filmed a few adventures out hunting mushrooms. That was the year that I discovered the spot where I'm at right now, but that was also the only year I ever found mushrooms right here in this area. I think it was 2018 or 2019 was also a really good year. I think 2019 was the year of the flood. So I think 2018 was a really good year. Come on, you little sponges, where you hiding at? Now people ask me, why do you keep checking the same spots year after year, even though a spot like this that used to have tons of mushrooms doesn't have them at all anymore? I haven't found any mushrooms in this spot, and I think this is the third year in a row now where I haven't found a single mushroom growing in this area where I used to pick, 5 or 10 pounds. And the reason why is because you just never know when they're gonna come back. You just never know. They're very fickle things, and the year that I don't check an area is the year that they decide they want to come back to that area. Because the soil rejuvenates itself, the mycelium spreads, the spores spread, and so you just never know when they're gonna take off in a spot once again. And plus, you know what? It's always good to get out in the woods and do a little bit of exploring. It's fun, it's good for you, gets the blood pumping, burns off some calories. Oh, there's a bunch of fresh, looks like some mica caps popping up right there. And those are fresh, those probably just popped up overnight. They haven't even fully opened yet. So that's a good sign. Usually lets you know the soil is producing. Yeah, I could have went home, unloaded my trailer and worked at the yard, did something there. I could have went home and sat down, edited videos. There's a lot of things I could have done today after the auction was over, but we were so close. I couldn't see not at least checking. Plus, I'm going to be going camping on Monday, and I was going to come check this area on Monday, but now I won't have to come out here. I can go fishing or something else like that on Monday. I'm always struggling and juggling time, trying to fit everything into a busy schedule. Oh my word, guys, right there. That's not a morel, but that's a good and healthy oyster growing right there. Check that bad boy out. That's cool. That's a pretty good size one. Here's my fingers. So yeah, right there. There's something for us. Oh yeah, that's a good and fresh one there, kind of hidden from the sun. Yeah, bingo. Cool. It's not full of bugs or nothing like that. I always leave kind of the base back there. I always just take off the outer fringe. It's a little bit softer, more tender. It tastes about the same, it's just more tender. Oysters are once again very aggressive. They spread really easy, so there could be more around here. Look at this funky mushroom. That's a weird looking one. There's another one there, some old toadstools of some sort. I thought, oh, yep, right there. I knew there had to be one. I knew it because this tree isn't that old of a fallen tree. I knew it had to have one. So there's one. Make sure I don't step on any others on the way over there. All right, guys, we're not going back empty-handed today. No siree. If that's the only one we found, at least we found something. Right there. That's exciting, guys. That's super exciting. That's a morale boost. See, I told you, I haven't found mushrooms in this area in a long time. There's one right there, plus we found that oyster. That's where you gotta check your old spots. You may not spend a bunch of time there, but you gotta at least check. Check this out, guys. This plant right here, at first glance, it kind of looks like something that's edible. You don't see it too often anyway. There's a handful of them growing right here in this one little area. And there's a thing called Horribolesia, or Bolesia, however you pronounce it. And it is edible, and it's a choice edible. It's actually pretty good. But the thing about those is they kind of have hair on the stems. You see how this is smooth? That makes this a very young buttercup. And these are poisonous. All parts of this plant are poisonous. The stem, the leaves, the roots, the flowers, everything about these is poisonous. And so that's why you got to know your stuff, because the edible version and the non-edible version look, when they're young like this, the leaves look identical. But when they're young, the only way you can really tell the difference is the stem, whether it's smooth or hairy. I was excited when I first saw it because I thought it was the edible version until I picked a piece and I realized it is not. Headlight. That's something you see out in the woods every day. This area just looks so good. I'm just not seeing anything. I think the problem is the ground might actually be a little bit too wet where we're at right now. It's really waterlogged in certain areas, but I've found mushrooms in soil like this before, so I'm not sure. Regardless of mushrooms, this is beautiful back here. And what's cool about this area I've noticed is all the trees, the big trees died out years ago after that tornado, but in this area at least, it's these maple trees have started to replace them instead of, the shrubs or the undesirable things. And maple trees will grow morels. I've seen them on there before. Now, obviously, these trees are way too young, so they're not going to produce any. But in the future, this might be a good spot. Right now, I'm just kind of scavenging around to see what else we can find. Oh, there we go. There's an edible lamb's quarter. I think that's the first lamb's quarter I've seen all year. When they're young and tender like this, they're a little bit more edible than when they get larger. I'm going to go ahead and save it. I don't see any more, but if we find enough of it, I'll take it home and blanch it and freeze it. I need to get a, well, what's it called? A vacuum sealer. It'd be a little bit better than just, I try to blanch it and then I lay it out in a nice thin layer, flash freeze it, and then I put it in Ziploc bags. And I try to get, 90% of the air out, but there's always a little bit of air left and it creates a little bit of a chance for freezer burn. I don't see any more in there, so I'll see you guys here in a minute somewhere else. It's kind of gruesome, so I'm not gonna get too close to it, but there's what's left of, I think it might have been a rabbit, but it's basically just the hind legs and all the entrails laying over there. So something was sure chowing down. They must be eating good if they left that behind. If it's a rough year, the coyotes, they won't leave nothing behind, or the other animals, the other critters will get to it quick. That's pretty fresh though. There's not even any flies on that. That probably just happened this morning sometime. There's a big old butter. Is that a monarch? I think it is. It's kind of early for monarchs, so it must be just a look-alike. There's one down here too. They sure look like monarchs. They're orange and black. Not seeing nothing. I have found them here before, but never very many in this little area. If we could find some more lamb's quarter though, that would be cool. I mean, I really didn't find enough of that one plant to justify the time to get everything out to process it. Nope. This was a good spot last year, but it's a nothing spot this year, it looks like. This wasn't the best spot I found last year though. That's a little ways further down. This was another good spot last year. Not only did I find a ton of morels here, but I found a bunch of other mushrooms as well. But I don't see nothing. That is so crazy. Now you watch. I'm gonna find a bunch of mushrooms in a spot that I've never seen before. Hopefully anyway. Now that I said that, I better find some wood. Plenty of wood around me. Knock on that real quick. Man, it's looking more and more like we got really lucky on that one that we found. Whew, just about lost my balance. Turning the camera on. Just kind of getting a top-down view to see if there's anything hiding around here. Sometimes it's a really good way of finding those hard to find mushrooms that are hiding down in the grass. Not seeing any though. Man, I tell you what, I was all excited. I hiked all the way over here because I saw this sticking up, and it's just a piece of tree bark that stabbed itself in the ground when it fell. That was a lot of struggling to get over here for that. From a distance, it was the right color and it was standing upright, so I figured it had to be a morel. Are my bald eagles here? Their nest is still up there. I don't see the eagles though. Now here's an example of ecology changing, local ecology of a place like this. Oh, there was that tornado came through. I forget what year that was, but anyway, the year after that tornado came through, all these trees were knocked down, and this was mushroom mecca in here. I mean, it was crazy. There were so many mushrooms here. We were picking massive bouquets of them, and that year was great. The next year there was a few, but then it got completely overgrown with tall grass, and you couldn't really find any. And then it got overgrown with all these shrubs like this. Well, then the shrubs got so thick that they kind of strangled themselves out, and now they're all, as you can see, starting to disappear, and so it's starting to turn more into open area again. Now there's still a lot of grass here. This is an area to where if the morels were growing early in the season, this would be a good spot to come because the grass wouldn't be as tall. But I haven't been able to hike through here in years. I mean, it's been literal years since I've been able to walk through this area. And so now there's stuff growing here that didn't grow here before. Like this stuff here, this is some type of mustard. I forget what kind it is, but this kind is really spicy. I have mixed these into salads before and they are, they will zap you. So I don't consider those to be a choice edible. Now this area is still kind of overgrown a little bit. Obviously there's probably not gonna be any mushrooms growing in this area just because there's nothing for them to grow on. They don't usually just grow out in the open like this. They do sometimes. Like you see, they're fickle things, but being able to hike through this area again is kind of encouraging. So it just goes to show that over the course of time, things slowly change over and over and over again. You know, another 10 years from now, this will look totally different yet. It's just cool to explore, see how things have changed, see what's new, see if there's anything good. Like this tree here, look at that. That is so cool. That tree is just about dead. I mean, the thing's starting to rot and fall apart down there, but there's still a few limbs holding on for dear life growing out of this dying stump. It's just crazy how it's living and rotting at the same time. That's just, who would have ever saw? I may be the only person that ever gets to see this tree right here. That's the sort of stuff I think about when I'm out in the woods by myself. Maybe that makes me weird, I don't know, but it's what goes through my head. What is that? Some sort of funky ball. Wobble, wag, giggle, full of ants. I'm not going to hold on to it, but I don't have no clue what that is. Oh, right there. There's the bald eagle. You guys see it? Every year they're back here again, checking me out. I'm going to get my phone out and get a reel of that. That was kind of spooky. She's flying over me trying to figure out what in the world I'm doing. And I just saw her shadow go through here. It just made me think, like, being a caveman out here, and there's dinosaurs around, you see the shadow of a pterodon or something like that flying over. See, I have these weird thoughts in my head. I'm sorry. I shouldn't even tell you all my weird thoughts. You guys are going to think I'm a weirdo now. But part of that's why I enjoy being out in the woods like this, is it just gives you time to yourself, time to think and time to imagine, and just, I don't know. That's just me. Maybe you don't do that. Maybe you can't stand the silence of your own thoughts when you're out in the woods. I were a morel, where would I be? Well, that looks like a good tree. A couple good trees right here. I found them in this area before. Once again, this isn't like a prime spot where I find tons of them, but I found a few here. Gets a little bit too much sun. Woodpeckers have been going to town on this thing, man. Oh yeah, look, they've been shredding this poor tree. This stuff here, whatever this green stuff is, it feels like you're walking on carpet. It's kind of crazy. That looks like a good area over there. This whole area looks pretty good, really. I guess I'll just kind of zigzag back and forth. Now, if I were a morel, I would be hanging out in this area right here. Now, obviously, I'm not a morel, and I don't know what I'm talking about because they never seem to agree with me. This seems like it would be a really good area. I mean, look at this. This tree here is like just begging the mushrooms, eat me. I'm right here. My nice nutritious roots are right here. Form your mycelium. There's a bunch of riverbank grapes growing around this area. I know they're here. They're just hiding from me. There's a big old burl in that tree. I wonder what causes that. I'm sure I've researched it before, but I can't remember offhand what causes burls. I can't believe it. All these freshly down trees all through there. I don't really see too many in this area, but all through that area behind me, nothing. I mean, if I could find a few dried up ones or a couple stumps, I'd be like, oh, it's too late. Or, oh, an animal ate it already, or something like that. But to find literally nothing, it's just crazy to me. Hey, something, finally. At least it's something. Something's actually smacked this already. Big old ink caps. Yeah, those ink caps are the first sign of any mushrooms out here. Now this soil up here is a little bit more moist, a little bit more hospitable than the soil back there. Back there it's just brick hard. We're a little bit closer to the water up here, but there's a bunch of fresh down trees over there. So that's where we're going to work our way to next. Oh, check out this sick burl. That is crazy looking. Huh. Now this honestly makes me a little bit nervous. You see this area starting to get overgrown with this other stuff? This used to be a really good area where I found a lot, but it was never overgrown with whatever this stuff is. My original record mushroom I found actually just right over here. Last year I found one, a massive one, but that area where I found that one's underwater this year. But I used to be able to find quite a few through here. It wasn't quite this overgrown then. I could actually see off in the distance to see if there was any big mushrooms. Oh, there's a bobber. Just an old junk one, but we always pick up some sort of trash while we're out in the woods, so that'll be our trash pickup. Yep, it was this here area 3 years ago that I was finding boatloads of giant morels, 4 to 8 inches tall. And there was bunches of them. And then last year I found some gigantic oysters not far from here. Wouldn't that be something if we only found one mushroom on this whole trip? Or one oyster and one morel? We're not done yet. Got a little ways further to go, but come on, I need some more than that. I don't need a bunch more, but I mean, I'd like to find a few more. This area is not nearly as overgrown as up there was, so I was hoping maybe we'd find something. But there was a spot back here last year that I found a ton of them. And so maybe, just maybe, we'll find some back there. Nope, no oysters. There's some sort of shaggy, hairy fungus. It's kind of weird. It actually feels like it has hair on it growing on here. But this is where I found those big oysters last year. And there was a bunch of morels there and then a bunch down there. I just don't like how dry this ground is. Don't like that at all. We got some fresh mica caps popping up. Well, they're not that fresh. They're probably a couple days old, but they're not old. Anything over here? Nope, I saw that piece of bark down there and thought maybe it was something good, but it's not. This might be the worst year of mushrooms since I started filming on YouTube. I think 22 was a rough year as well. And on my map, I don't have that many spots marked from 22. But this year might take the cake. This year, yeah, it was this area right here. They were growing all through here. Well, there's some old mushrooms growing on that, but they're nice and crusty now. Yeah, this whole field was full, and then over here was full. What got all these trees was a beaver. I'm glad that beaver finally died. It came through here and it wiped out a ton of trees. And it would just chew them and knock them down and then let them lay. Didn't use the lumber, didn't do anything with it, just knocked all the trees down that it could. I know beavers are important, but at the same time, they are super annoying. There's a bunch of deer back there, all taken off through the trees now. This is kind of a bad sign. This is a locust tree. All these are, well, not these, but over here there's a bunch of locust trees starting to come in. Once those things get established in an area, they'll start taking over. Well, you know what, guys, I guess this means we're gonna have to hike back empty-handed. I guess because that very first oyster and mushroom I picked were about 45 minutes into our hike. I could have just picked those and went back. It's been, probably another hour since then. Haven't found a single one, not even signs of one. It's getting late enough here in the year now is where even if we do get rain, I think it's too late for this season. There's the bones of something. Looks like an owl. You know how owls will pick up the bones? Might have been probably sitting here on this root right here, digesting something it ate. It's crazy how that area over there, I was finding mushrooms like crazy last year. Now it's completely overgrown. This area, I couldn't even walk through here a few years ago, or even last year it was pretty overgrown. Now it's just wide open. Well, I am almost back to the truck. Didn't find anything else. Crazy is I didn't even find any garlic mustard. I was hoping to find at least some of that, or maybe some more lamb's quarter or something, but I didn't find nothing at all. So that's definitely a bummer, but you know what? I mean, we found 2 mushrooms, 1 oyster, 1 morel, and they were right beside each other. Go figure. But it is better than nothing. I was just looking, I don't see anything good around this tree. Just checking the last few little spots on my way back. But if you guys enjoyed this, I was about to say it was a failure of a video. It wasn't really a failure. We did succeed. Found a few things and we got to see some cool stuff and got to see how things are changing. That was interesting to me. Got to see a bald eagle. But at any rate, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Stay tuned for the next one. I'm not sure what we'll be doing next. Maybe some more fishing. As always, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. Remember to get out there, find yourself an adventure. And even if you don't find exactly what you're looking for, you can still get out there and see some things you may not have expected to see. And you just never know. You never know what's going to happen. That's why you got to keep getting out there. We'll see you on the next one.